Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Coco and Dalt's, the podcast. And it's been so long, I forgot how to do the intro, but I think I remember saying, I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Dalt's. And I think it's been about 5 months since the last time we did a podcast. We didn't intend to take the summer off, but that's kind of how it ended up working out. So,
well, I think we pulled our hiatus, is what we did.
We did.
And now we're back. And we're better than ever because we're rested, we're refreshed, we've had lots of opportunities to consume culture at a more gentle pace. Rather than the rapid fire, we gotta watch this, we gotta watch that, we gotta read this.
I mean, we are in a 24-hour news cycle world now, so...
So what you're saying is our listeners have forgotten entirely who we are, and we need to reintroduce ourselves.
Maybe our single drunken Swedish listener is still out there, like refreshing his iTunes app, podcast app.
He's checking, he's like, I think this is broken.
Right.
Or wherever how you say that in Swedish.
Scabby Canula.
I hope you didn't just swear in Swedish.
I totally just did. That's the only thing I know how to say in Swedish, and it's not...
All right, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
All right. So we're here today for this podcast to talk about a movie.
2 movies.
Oh, wait a minute. 2 movies.
What?
Because what we did... Do you want to tell them what we did, Coco?
So Dalt's birthday was this past Thursday. He's 29. And we decided to have a weekend-long celebration of birthday festivities. So today we saw not 1, but 2 movies at our local Cineplex. And yeah. And
this comes hot on the heels of yesterday, actually last night's consumption of one of the greatest movies of all time, The Godfather. Which
we're not going to talk about today because everybody's seen it, but it was a good movie, clearly.
So I'm going to mention that now, and then that will justify me putting The Godfather in the SEO, and so that it shows up in search and stuff like that.
You're so smart. That's why I love you.
So now we're going to move on from The Godfather. Okay. So the first movie that we saw, oddly enough, was called Man on First.
No, I don't think that's what that was called, actually.
It's called First Man.
Okay.
You're supposed to play along and say,
sorry.
that's not
Who's
Abbott
on
and Costello.
First? What's on second?
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I messed that up.
You totally messed. See, we're rusty.
Yeah.
Our chemistry is rusty. Can you have rusty chemistry? I don't know if that's
I don't
possible.
know. We used to have copious amounts of rehearsals before every podcast, and now we're just winging it. So.
Well, so what happened was the studio crew that used to help us got so tired of waiting around for us to do another podcast. Because we were, finding ourselves during the summer.
We had a gap summer, like teenagers have gap years between high school and college.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We went backpacking around the Berkshires, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So, First Man, starring Ryan Gosling, is the story about Neil Armstrong. And for those who don't know, well then, what are you doing listening to this podcast?
No, don't drive away our one remaining listener.
So,
although I know my cousin wanted us to start podcasting again, so maybe we have not 1 but 2 listeners.
And when we traveled recently outside of the tri-state area,
that's true.
We encountered many people who were saying, "When are you doing the podcast again?" And so this is a direct response. Listeners, we are listening and we are responding.
That's true.
So, First Man, Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong, of course, being the first man to walk on the moon.
Or was he? We'll get to the conspiracy theories later.
Well, no, I think we should go directly to that, Coco. Because,
do you think so?
Yes, because I think for you, this was a different experience watching this movie. The tale of building up to the first landing on the moon. Why do you think the way you think?
Oh, okay. Wow, okay. So I apologize for those of you who actually wanted to hear a movie review are going to have to keep hitting like the 15-second fast forward button.
They do that usually anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Just get to the end and give them the credit for the listen.
Right, that's all I live.
So I wouldn't say that I'm completely 100% sold on the moon landing never happening, but I'd say I'm 99% sold on the moon landing never happening. And I'm not really one of those conspiracy theory people. Like, I believe that Osama bin Laden got shot, So
you're saying that the moon landing was staged.
A hoax. Yeah, Area 51, baby. It's all, the set is there.
So give us some facts to convince us, because some of us, in this room here today.
You mean you? Just you?
Just
and
me, actually.
I think my dog went downstairs.
Yes,
so.
and another person also.
Yeah.
These people that are in the room now, we were very skeptical of the conspiracy theories that you spouted off regularly early on in our introduction.
I don't know if was it regular though. I'm not one of those people who sits around and like mutters to myself.
We would go to the restaurant and you'd be like, I don't think they cook the food here. Just another conspiracy. Just like the moon landing. Remember those days when you were more honest than you are now?
What?
No, wait a minute.
What? No, I think we need to start over again because this podcast is just going off in like a really bad direction.
Okay, so conspiracy theory.
So
sell me on the moon landing.
If anybody out there hasn't seen it and you have Netflix, there's a documentary on Netflix, and of course I can't remember what it's called. It's probably just called like Conspiracy: Moon Landing. But
I think you're right.
It really breaks down all the different ways that the moon landing could have been hoaxed, or I don't think that's actually a word. But okay. Just from like the typical stuff that most people have heard of. Like the American flag flapping in the wind because space is a vacuum and there's no wind on the moon. To other
shadows
shadows being not the angle they should have been in for the angle the sun was in the sky, and also the photos that were released, like crosshairs shouldn't have been in them and stuff like that. Like I can't really explain a lot of it because it's very technical, but yeah, so I saw that and I was already on the fence about it, and then I saw that and I was like, yeah, you know what, I think I buy all that. So
I was a full believer in the moon landing was legit until you started talking about me, and I was, as most people are, I was smitten with you, and then I just became enraptured and swept away in your beauty and intelligence and theories.
This is how cults get started, isn't it? Like...
You are getting very sleepy. So I was skeptical, but being a very open-minded person and being open to our love, I also thought, well, I'll give it a try. And you brought me around, I think. I'm not 99% skeptical like you are, but I'd say I'm on the fence now because not only are there things that you mentioned about the moon landing, but also some of the other things that I found very interesting, like the technology at the time.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Could not have possibly survived. They couldn't have survived the decompression and the atmospheric changes and all that sort of stuff, and the oxygen resuscitation and recalibration and all that sort of stuff.
Right. You couldn't have paid me enough money now or then to get in that bucket of bolts that they built in the 60s with dinosaur technology.
And you see the uniforms they had on, like the spacesuits that were apparently really thin in those days, and they kind of looked like, your dad's old coveralls that they slapped together and give them a helmet to put on top of it. Right. And then you see when the guys are up and the gals are up in the space shuttle, more recently, and up at the space station, they've got these big, thick suits on, and everything is really built for different pressurized situations. So yeah, I in hindsight, I'm with you there.
Wow.
So this all dovetails to the movie First Man, which we are here to review.
Which we are now 10 minutes into the podcast, finally getting around to actually talking about.
We have to reintroduce ourselves to the listeners.
I'm not Dalt.
And I'm not Coco. No, I didn't mean that literally, but, but that's good anyway.
Okay.
So what did you think of the movie starring Ryan Gosling as Neil Morrison? No, not Neil Morrison. That's a friend of mine, Neil Armstrong.
I was going to say, who's Neil Morrison? Is that like Jim Morrison's brother?
Maybe I'll try to edit that part out. So starring Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong.
There we go. It was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I'd maybe give it like a B to B minus. It was too long.
So if it was a dessert, what kind of dessert would that movie be?
Ooh.
Would it be like it wouldn't be a souffle, it wouldn't be like a brownie, would it be just like vanilla ice cream? It's like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I'm not going to...
It'd be like a flan. Like, I usually don't get flan at Mexican restaurants, but every now and then I'm like, I'll have the flan, why not?
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I will say, though, Ryan Gosling, excellent, as always. He's so good, he makes it look effortless. And I also did enjoy the supporting cast. They were all very good. Claire Foy as his wife.
She was fantastic.
She was really good.
Yeah.
I highly recommend her as Anne Boleyn in Wolf Hall if you have not seen the PBS miniseries of that. And also Corey Stoll as Buzz Aldrin. He really wasn't in it very much. It was basically a glorified cameo, but I thought he kind of stole every scene he was in.
Yeah,
so,
he was good. But
yeah.
I think Buzz Aldrin is an interesting character too. So it's sort of like playing, sort of like Batman and the Joker.
Right. Yeah.
Like the villain is always going to be the more interesting guy, or the edgier guy is always going to be the more interesting guy to play.
Yeah. So what did you think, Dalton?
So Ryan Gosling, I agree, very solid. I figured out Ryan Gosling though. I've seen a lot of his movies, and I am a big fan of his. And of course, he being the same
fellow Canadian,
he's a fellow Canadian from the same country as I am. So we must embrace all that is Canadian. That's the way we do things. I figured out the way he did this in Blade Runner 2049 too. Is that so? He acts very subtly, very mildly, very not really acting, and then all of a sudden he'll have an outburst, which he did in Blade Runner 2049. And also this outburst, I won't really spoil it in because there's a major plot line here that we didn't talk about that is a thread that I didn't know about before going into this movie.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, actually.
So I don't want to spoil it, but there's a similar outburst moment, an emotional outburst moment that sticks out for his character in that movie. And so that's the way he seems to operate. And there's a couple other movies. I think the Tall Pines or whatever that movie was he was in.
The Place Beyond the Pines.
That's it. With Bradley Cooper, which is a segue in some ways.
I didn't know Bradley Cooper was in that one.
Bradley Cooper was in that, if I remember correctly. And there was a similar type thing in that scene, in that movie, where he was like the cool cucumber and then off the rails all of a sudden and then back. So overall, the movie, to me, I thought it was, to me, it was vanilla ice cream. It's like, I enjoy vanilla ice cream every now and then, but if I get it all the time, I'm going to get bored of it. And again, you know how that movie is going to end.
Right, exactly.
You know how it starts with a little bit of knowledge of the space program is like it was the Wild West. It was cowboys and guys who wouldn't do it, wouldn't, they were the heroes and they were the rebels and they were the guys that the misfits and all that sort of stuff. Right Stuff, the movie, like all that kind of stuff, where it's coming from, right? So
I will say I did think the director who also directed Ryan Gosling in La La Land, he I thought he did a really good job, even though you know what happens, like building tension.
Yeah.
Like in the one scene when he goes up and they're supposed to redock the module with the other bit. And then I'm not.
That's pretty technical.
I didn't major in a STEM category. So
what?
I was an English major. I know.
That fools me.
I know.
That astounds me.
Since I say like 8,000 times during each episode, I'm sure that astounds our listeners as well. So, and things went haywire, and they're rolling around in space, and he's going to survive it because you know what happens in the end. But I still thought the director did a very good job of creating dramatic tension, like. You're still on the edge of your seat and you're just praying everything turns out okay. And I also appreciated that I have motion sickness issues, and even though there was clearly a lot of space flight and things going wrong in space
and spinning,
it wasn't like Blair Witch where the shaky camera and you're like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. I appreciated that they kept that to a minimum.
This movie is making me sick.
Yeah, and we didn't even have a popcorn bucket for me to hurl into if I needed to.
So I'm going to ignore that, and I'm also going to say about the. Where was I going with that?
I don't know. The hurl threw you off.
The hurl totally threw me off.
I'm sorry. Spinning thrusters.
So,
stem.
I know where I was going. The cinematography was very well done, but it was not what you think of when you think of a space movie.
Right.
So there were not a lot of broad horizons. There's not a lot of art. The Earth as a semicircle covering the entire screen. It was very claustrophobic. There was a lot of tight shots.
Yeah.
I think that was intentional. I think you were supposed to be like, oh my gosh, these guys are in this capsule and you can barely move and you can barely breathe. And
there were also a lot of like tight close-up shots of just Ryan Gosling's eyes, which I appreciate because basically it's a character study of Neil Armstrong.
Right.
Like it's not, even though it's secondarily the story of the space program, it's not the story of the space program. It's the story of this one man and this particular time in his life and everything happening with his family and in his career. And so that's why when the big brouhaha happened about they didn't include a scene of them planting the American flag on the moon, I was okay with that because that's not what this is really about. It's about this one man and his quest to do this one thing. And
Well, and I like that too, because there wasn't a lot of, even though I said this was the expected movie, they didn't do, or like the story, the story, they didn't do it in an expected way. So to my point about cinematography, to your point about the flag, I mean, we get the speech when he steps off, because you can't do a Neil Armstrong movie without that line.
Right.
But there was a lot of stuff around it that we learned of. Like, for example, the Gemini project. The Gemini, as I learned at the beginning of the movie, that was what I learned the most out of this movie. The best topic was that I've been pronouncing Gemini wrong all this time.
As have I.
And what was it in the movie? Geminini?
Gemini?
Gemini.
Yeah.
And repeatedly. And regardless of where the person was from in the country, they all pronounced it that way.
I don't believe I've ever heard it pronounced that way. So I don't know if that's just been a change in pronunciation, like how language just evolves over the past 50 years.
Like the use of impact, for example.
Or literally.
Or literally, yes.
So the first time I heard that, I was kind of jarred, like, WTF, okay, that this one person is pronouncing it funny, and then everybody pronounced it that way. So
well, and it helped because they put Gemini on the screen, and then so that you were expecting it, and then when you hear Geminini or whatever,
Jiminy Cricket,
Gemini or whatever, however they pronounced it, you knew what they were talking about. You could make those connections.
So if any of our listeners does have a STEM degree and can enlighten us as to why Gemini is not pronounced Gemini, please email cocoandalts@gmail.com or drop a message on our Facebook page, because we are interested in what the heck is going on there.
So speaking of what the heck is going on,
yes,
the other movie that we went to see today,
yes,
A Star is Born.
That's quite the double.
That was quite the double, and I'm ashamed to say that we paid for one movie, not two.
Well, I paid for an entrance for me, and I also paid for an entrance for you.
Oh,
so
I see how that works.
I mean, we paid for 2 tickets.
That's true. That is true.
We need to stop advertising the fact that we don't pay, because eventually somebody is
Nobody's listening.
That's true. My cousin in Seattle isn't going to call up our local theater and be like, hey, keep an eye out for these 2 middle-aged people.
These 2 dodgy-looking characters. They're not going to buy anything at the concessions.
We should have bought the popcorn.
We probably should have.
Yeah, that's it.
So, A Star is Born, starring Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, who is also going to be in the Queen movie, I think.
Yes.
Radio Gaga.
Yeah.
So, Lady Gaga, sorry about that. And it was... What did you think of that movie, Coco?
No, you go first, because I went first last time.
So...
No conspiracy theories around A Star is Born, FYI.
No conspiracy theories, and nothing really to make it interesting. I thought that it was fine. Again, another vanilla movie. Oh. I knew what was going to happen, sort of. I mean, I didn't watch the Chris Christopherson, Barbra Streisand version.
From the reviews I've read of that, I think we're better off.
Yeah, right. But I sort of knew the general... You know where I learned, actually... When I was a kid, I used to read Cracked magazine, which is like Mad magazine.
Oh.
And they used to do movie parodies all the time.
Oh.
And so that was when that movie was released, when I was reading Cracked magazine. So I knew the story of A Star is Born from Cracked magazine. Mm-hmm. And they used to make fun of Barbra Streisand in that, and her prodigious nose. And, those are different times.
You can't help what you look like.
You can't be a nosist anymore. What would that be, actually? Would it be a rhino...
Rhino, I don't know. Yeah.
So that's how I learned about that story, and so I knew the basic plot is where I'm going with this. And I thought it was fine. I was impressed with Bradley Cooper's
serial killer eyes.
No, singing and guitar playing. But I think I was supposed to. He spent something like 3 years learning a guitar or something like that, and learning to sing, and got all sorts of coaching on that. Lady Gaga was really good. Mm-hmm. I thought she was better than I thought she was going to be.
Definitely.
I mean, all musical artists act in some way, shape, or form, so it's not like they're starting from scratch.
Right. But you can go like the Madonna route with your acting, or you can go the Barbra Streisand route with your acting.
Right, exactly. There's 2 directions there.
Yeah.
And I thought she was great. The music was pretty good, actually. Mm-hmm. I thought the one song that he played at the beginning was really good, but it just didn't, I don't know. It just didn't do anything for me. I got no zip out of that movie. It was fine. I was sitting beside you the entire time, so I enjoyed that.
This was your birthday double feature, and it was just like...
Yeah, but the movies were my selection, so it's all on me.
Well, no, we collaborated on the selection.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
So what did you think, Coco, of A Star is Born starring Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga?
I very much enjoyed it, actually.
You did? Okay.
I would give it like an A- or a B+.
So in the dessert theme... where would you go?
Oh, wow.
Is this like Nanaimo bar? Butter tart?
Oh, I don't like butter tarts, actually.
Oh, don't tell my daughter that.
Well, I'm going to have to, because then she can have all my butter tarts. Although maybe I shouldn't then, because then she'll want all my butter tarts.
And she'll eat all your butter tarts. And then there'll be a sugar high bouncing around the house.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's maybe a chocolate lava cake, which I know puts me like right in like 1997, but I don't care.
You like what you like. Who cares?
Yeah, you like what you like. No, I liked it. I liked Bradley Cooper. I didn't always believe Gaga. I could see her.
You see her acting sometimes? Yeah.
But I bought the love story between the two of them, like the first half of the movie when they were getting together and they were falling in love. Like, I bought that.
Yeah.
Sam Elliott, I don't see how there's any way he doesn't get nominated for an Oscar for this movie. I thought he was fantastic.
He was fantastic, but he's always the same in every movie.
I know, but...
And I was at one point there where I was thinking he was going to just... Because he does that lean with his head thing.
Yeah,
And he does that in every movie. And at one point I thought he was just going to keep going. And he was just going to topple over and we'd see the bottom of his shoes. You know, like one of those...
Yeah.
But he was great.
Yeah, he was good. The music was really good. There's at least one song, if not two, that'll probably get nominated for Oscars, I think, for original song.
I thought you were going to say they will find their way onto your iPod.
They actually just might.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I do have a Lady Gaga playlist for spinning, so I could put a couple of those songs on there.
So I don't know much about Lady Gaga. I mean, all I knew before this movie was her in the meat suit on one of the award shows, and then she was on a 60 Minutes interview that I saw, which was very revelatory about her. But I don't really know her music very well because I'm square. But I thought she was really good. She was really belting out the music. She's got a great voice.
Yeah.
If that's really her voice, and I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
She was great.
Her first album, like The Fame and the Fame Monster, like her very dancey, poppy album, that's very, very good.
Can you do an example of one of her songs? No. Sing it for us.
Pa poker face, pa poker face, ma 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 ma. There we go.
That's actually a song on her album.
You haven't heard Poker Face?
Poker Face.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Actually, Sam Elliott was on, I think, Colbert lately, and Colbert had him read like Gaga lyrics, and it was like the funniest thing because he was like, "I'm not bluffing with my muffin" or whatever. It was like so funny, like it was fantastic. But anyway, so her first album was really good, and then I think after that she didn't have people around her who would tell her no. So for me,
yes, that happens.
her second album, I didn't really like it at all, and then she kind of went into like the country territory, but then she kind of rebounded with Tony Bennett. I love Tony Bennett because I am also old and square. So I think she kind of rebounded with that, and you know, it's nice to see her kind of like find her way back to not being in the weeds musically. But I will say that this remake has been kicking around for probably about 10 years.
Oh yeah.
And at one point Beyonce was attached, and I thought Lady Gaga did a fine job. I don't think Beyonce is a very good actor. So the Hive is going to come after us now, so I apologize for all the hate mail we're going to receive. But
no, because we were loving on the JZ previous issue.
That's true.
Or edition or whatever we're on, whatever kind of platform we're on.
Yeah, so I do appreciate that it was not Beyonce.
So that raises a very good question that I was going to ask you.
Oh, what's that?
So Star is Born gets made every, 25 years or something like that, it seems like. So what's the next one?
Well, I didn't read any of the speculation, but I did hear that on the interwebs, because it's actually been 40 years since the last one was made, and it had been about every 20 years. So who would have been in the 90s version?
Oh, that's a good one.
I think Gwyneth Paltrow definitely would have been Gaga in the 90s version.
Because
she was the 90s it girl. And also she fancies herself a singer, and she was in that really bad karaoke movie with Huey Lewis called Duets, I believe.
Yes, it was.
So I don't think there is any way.
But it's got to be a singer, though. It's got to be because Lady Gaga, Barbra Streisand, singers.
Judy Garland. But then I think the lady who was in the original version back in the 30s, I don't know if she was a singer, though.
Well, that's 100 years ago.
Okay.
So what about, here's some possibilities.
Oh, goodness.
90 singers who could have been in A Star is Born.
Alanis Morissette.
Oh, yeah. Beyonce. Gwen Stefani. Get ready for this one. Sinead O'Connor.
Oh, young.
How awesome would that have been?
Hard pass on that.
Mariah Carey, Madonna, Celine Dion.
No, these people are all too... Well, I didn't realize Lady Gaga is in her early 30s now.
Yeah.
And for this role, for some reason... But she seems younger, even though she's been around and she's been a thing for like a solid 10 years now.
Yeah.
She seems like she should still be in her mid-20s. So that's
where you're coming from?
Yeah, so like Gwen Stefani would have fit that bill in the 90s, but Mariah would have been aging out at that point. Madonna definitely would have been too old at that point. Like
Christina Aguilera, Kate Bush,
oh goodness,
Gloria Estefan.
No, she was way too old at that point.
Annie Lennox.
No.
Diana Ross, Leanne Rimes, Avril Lavigne.
No, she didn't even become a thing until the early 2000s. I'm sticking with Gwyneth Paltrow. Who would have been the guy?
So the guy would be... So we go from Chris Christopherson to Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
And the bridge there would be, let's see, 90s actors.
Please pardon this pause while Daltz Googles 90s actors.
How did you know I was Googling them? There's no way you could see that. Matt Dillon was the first one that showed up.
Oh, interesting. Oh, Cameron Diaz. Well, no, she wasn't a singer. But...
No, it's got to be a singer. It's got to be a singer and then an actor dude, right? So
I'm still saying Gwyneth Paltrow. That's what I'm hanging my hat on.
And Hugh Jackman.
He wasn't a thing in the 90s, though.
No, but...
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant and Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah,
in A Star Is Born.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Who would go see that?
Yeah, Hugh Grant was a little too emo, even probably for that, a little too awkward. Oh, wait, who would have been a grunge guy who would have been trying to go legit at that point?
Oh, like, yeah.
Maybe Eddie Vedder or...
Eddie Vedder and Gwyneth Paltrow in A Star Is Born. Yes. No, the 90s would have been too late. Oh, Sean Penn.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine him singing?
Oh.
It would be terrible.
Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's good in everything he does.
Tom Hanks.
Ooh, no.
Robert De Niro.
What about Pacino?
Pacino, yeah.
No, these guys are way too old.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
No. He was way too young then at that point.
Well, I'm only going by what the Google machine tells me.
Okay, so our call for the 90s version of A Star Is Born, Eddie Vedder and Gwyneth Paltrow. This is our 90s casting of A Star Is Born.
That would be so awesome. And I don't think we're going to be able to top that.
No, definitely not. Although if you have suggestions that we brain farted and overlooked, please, I've gotten hurl and fart in this podcast now, so thanks. Please drop us a line and let us know your dream casting for 90s A Star Is Born.
And then one of these days we'll make sure to check the inbox for cocoandalts@gmail.com.
Or you could just slide into our DMs and send us a Facebook message,
I have no idea what that means. It sounds vaguely erotic. And that's it for another week of Coco and Daltz. We thank you for waiting around for this episode. We know that you enjoyed it, and we know that you feel that it was worth it.
Hopefully we'll see you again before New Year's.
And I'm not Coco.
And I'm not Daltz.